Hello and welcome to Village Theater Spotlight, sharing stories, creating connections. I'm artistic director Jerry Dixon, and we are going to traverse the world of artist, composer, conductor, longtime pal of mine with a theme of If I Only Had One Day. I think you'll know him, Mr. Tom Kitt, but before he arrives, I want to lavish just a little praise on this guy. This guy, besides a slew of major nominations, this guy, oh boy, many awards. Next to normal, 2 Tony Awards, yep. Best score, best orchestrations, and for next to normal, also Pulitzer Prize winner for best drama. He has an Outer Critics Circle Award for outstanding new score for SpongeBob Squarepants, which I loved. Drama Desk Award for outstanding orchestrations for Jagged Little Pill. And one that slipped by me, I do not know how, a Primetime Emmy Award in 2014 for a song that he co-wrote for the Tony Awards called Bigger with Lin-Manuel Miranda. Now, I could keep going on, but I just got to have him come in before he finds another thing to do this evening. So please welcome Thomas Robert Kitt. I applaud you into the spotlight, Tom Kitt. How are you, man?
I'm good. You make my father very happy calling me Thomas Robert Kitt.
Well, that's your name.
I know. That's what he's been telling me all my life.
And Tom, happy snow day here in New York.
Happy snow day. We haven't had one of these storms in a while, so it's beautiful to see. Maybe it'll be a wet.
Yeah, and I have to bring that up because in the background, one might hear a snow shovel or two coming down my avenue because they're
already
trying to clear the streets.
Very proactive.
Yes. Anyway, look, I took the liberty of providing a few of your hyphens, but I always love for you to provide your own. So if I say Tom Kitt, theater artist, composer, conductor, what would you add to that hyphen? Musician, what else?
Arranger, orchestrator, pianist, student. Someone always feels like I'm learning in this world of theater and art. Activist, nurturer, creator, storyteller. I think those are good.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
Really great. Thank you. Tom, I want to dive right into your body of work, but before I do that, we're going to loosen things up. It's like, I know you, but I want the audience to sort of like get in the spirit of Tom Kitt. So I'm gonna do some icebreakers with you.
Right.
Tom, would you rather visit a volcano or a rainforest?
Rainforest.
Are you a good dancer?
No. But maybe I am. I've always thought I'm not very good. But if I loosen up a little bit, I can hold my own. Certainly, my wife did not run away when I tried to dance with her when we were first dating. So that's a good sign.
Nice. What product would you stockpile if you found out that it was not going to be made any longer?
Sheet music.
Okay, wow. What does your favorite shirt look like?
This is one of them. Billy Joel live.
Nice. What's your favorite tradition or holiday?
My favorite tradition or holiday. I have to say it's these days it's Yom Kippur. I really find it to be a very spiritual day. It's a hard day, and it's supposed to be, and it just the stillness of it, and the cleansing, the feeling that you are starting over in the year and taking stock of all that's happened, all you regret, wish that you could take back, but how you're going to be a better person. I just think it's a beautiful day.
Mm. And so, I mean, however timely something could be, wow, that is smack dab there, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you like your eggs?
Scrambled.
Do you collect anything?
I used to collect baseball cards. Now I would say Legos. And especially in the pandemic, finding something that can occupy your mind. I built these huge Legos, and they're all around the house. And if we ever move, I'd be fearful of how I would actually get to keep them intact.
Are they structures, animals,
Yeah, one of my
machines? Like what?
favorite, which I'm sure you and Mario will appreciate, is the Magic Kingdom. I've built the Magic Kingdom,
Oh,
no course of a
Disney.
yeah,
Oh my
probably.
God, you know we're Disney files. Oh my
Yep.
God. So Tom, you and I first met doing a benefit. I don't know if you remember that, but
Of course, I
you,
remember.
yeah, you were playing
Mhm.
in your band, the Tom Kitt band,
Yep.
and you were playing for everyone who else was singing. And I just remember walking into that. We were at a like one of those danky New York studios
Yep.
that we rehearse in. And I walked in and saw your motley crew there, and then you all started playing. Went, oh, okay, these guys are serious.
Well, I could
They're
tell you came
cats.
in and you were like, okay, I'm gonna have to try these guys out a little bit, and we
Yeah,
did Heartbreak
I was
Hotel,
suspicious.
because it's a chart. We had to play a chart. We had to actually read between the lines, as they say, and bring our musicianship to it, and that was the beginning of a very long and beautiful relationship and friendship
It
for
was
us.
awesome, and I
Collaboration.
can't even. I have a bad year memory. I can't like say go. Oh, that was that year. I know it's been a long time.
1999,
Whew, see, you're wow.
and Mario emceed the evening.
That's right. My hus, who was not my husband then, but I roped him into it later. So listen, throughout the evening, I'll be offering you some quotes as little things to tie myself into what we're talking about today. And all the quotes today, there are not many of them, but all of them are by either composers or songwriters. And here's my first one. And I chose this one because it sort of plugs into the band leader in you. There are two kinds of music, good music and the other kind. I love this quote.
It's a great quote. It's a great quote. I
Duke
took an
Ellington.
Ellington class in college, one of my favorite classes. Um, so I can't remember if that one was mentioned in class, but one of my favorite classes, and learned so much about arrangement and just breathtaking work.
Yeah. And as a singer, he's one of those singers who singers say, just sing the notes. It's already jazz. You don't have to play with them. He's just a wonderful composer.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Yep.
And this kind of leads me into some of your body of work. So I'd like to go back to your connection to Village Theater. And
Yes.
you had two experiences there, at least, maybe three. I know what one was In Your Eyes, and one was Feeling Electric,
Mhm.
which turned
Wow.
into
Wow. Next to normal.
Next to Normal. Um, Tom, tell us about your Village Theater experiences.
Well, Village Theater really is family, and especially because I was introduced to it by Brian Yorkie, and it was a place where Brian grew up. Brian had really strong relationships, and Village Theater wanted from the beginning to help the show, to support the show. They gave us our very first reading, I think, back in 2002, and we learned so much in that reading. I remember one of the actors who was in Making Tracks, which was another show that Brian was working on with a
Hmm.
good college friend of ours, Welly Yang, and that was going on simultaneous to this reading of Feeling Electric. And one of the actors said, "I love what I saw. I have no idea what happened, but I loved it," and it was great feedback, because I thought, yeah, this is a little episodic. We kind of went backwards. We wrote a bunch of songs and then tried to string them together. So that was a really important experience. And then, along with Jonathan Larson Foundation, Village Theater was instrumental in bringing Feeling Electric, Next to Normal, back from a dormant period. Brian and I had left it for a few years. Because of life, because of difficulties of just trying to support yourself and figure out what art is going to see its way through. And that was that picture you just showed with Amy Spanger was a pivotal reading, and led to the Nymph production, which then led to David Stone and Second Stage seeing the show and making it part of Second Stage's season. So really, Village Theater has been a lifesaver for that show, and it's just been a really warm and beautiful part of my life.
Mm. You know, that thing that fan, that actor, that performer said to you about, I don't know what it is, but I love what I saw. It's so important for us to speak out loud that the fact that sometimes it the heart of a show can be the most elusive thing. It's not necessarily characters and stories, sometimes the heart of it. You can have the characters right, you can have the story right, and if you can't find that core, you're sunk. And for it to, I've saw many iterations of the show. It always had its heart. It was never looking for that. It was just looking for the other things and
Yeah.
clarity and things like that that come with work. It's not magic, it's
Yeah.
work. And I just, it's from the get go. I would agree with that. It always was something to reckon with. It's like, wow, what is going on? I thought it was astounding to watch its transformation.
Thanks, Jerry.
Um, I have some of your other work in the form of collection of playbills. Now, I will say this is truly not in order, but I wanted the pictures to look pretty next to each other. So here's the first batch
Okay,
because
great.
I'm that kind of guy. Then
Yeah.
there's Dallas, Laugh which you, my husband, we all worked on together, and Cymboline.
Well, now that's I did the Symboline production that was at the Shakespeare in the Park.
Mm-hmm,
That
mm-hmm,
was 2015. Though
mm-hmm.
I would love to have
And
done
and and you
done it
wrote you
as
wrote
well.
the music for the incidental music. Or was it incidental music
Yes,
only or songs as well?
it was both actually.
Oh,
It was a wonderful production. Dan Sullivan conceived of the cast size was only 9, so people were playing multiple roles. And Raul
mm-hmm,
Esparza, I got to write songs for a song for him and for Hamish Linklater, and
mm-hmm.
it was conceived. Dan said from the beginning that there were going to be songs, and they were really quite satisfying to write. I've done 3 scores for Shakespeare in the Park. I did
Mm-hmm.
All's Well That Ends Well, and also with Dan, and then with
Mm-hmm.
Michael Cripe, I did The Winter's Tale, and all
Oh yeah,
3 utilized a huge amount of music, which is
yeah.
a gargantuan task, but so satisfying to sit in the delacorte and see it all come to life.
Awesome. And here's a show art from Hyperdeli, one of my favorites, with you and Amanda Green.
Well, you remember you were there for all the concerts developing that show, so
Oh yeah, the song Laura I sang, and I
yep.
sang Laura a little bit, and I sang something else. I don't
Desert
remember
Island
the song.
all-time top 5 breakups.
Yes, that's right. Oh my goodness! And then my second set of playbills that I pulled for you: Urban Cowboy, Bring It On, and American Idiot.
Yep.
This is quite a collection of stuff. I think that they couldn't be more different. First of all,
Yes,
and
that's
you
true.
did different things on each of these things.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Urban Cowboy was my first conducting job on Broadway. I was Jason Robert Brown's associate conductor,
mhm.
which meant actually subbing him going on. The band was on stage, and Jason wrote a song to begin Act Two that he would perform. So it was actually, I guess, also my Broadway
Oh,
debut as a
that's right.
performer. I would sing the
Yeah.
song every time I would conduct. It was quite thrilling.
And I there are sometimes when you go to specific performances that you remember like moments like indelible, like they've been burned into your eyes. And I remember the acting company handling the actually the riding of the bus in American Idiot. That was a tower and it was a bus and it was so highly theatrical that it could be all of these different things in your imagination. That was a beautiful show. It must have been amazing to work on.
It was. It was certainly my first foray into working with rock pop artists that I sort of revered, and just feels like when they walk into the room, there's a shift in all of the energy, and you get nervous and excited, and then but learning how to work on that kind of adaptation to both serve the what is there, the iconic source material, but also realizes it has to adapt for musical theater. So, and then of course, as you mentioned, the collaboration between Michael Mayer and all the designers, and specifically with Stephen Hoggett. That was the first time I had been introduced to Stephen's work, who's just one of the most brilliant artists. And they were on the same page from the beginning. And
Hmm.
stuff that you see in the rehearsal room, suddenly you're on stage and you see with the wonderful projections and that bus suddenly
Was
tip over
amazing.
right at the end of the first
It's
chorus.
like, what is
Your heart
happening?
just drops. It's
Yeah,
just why we love theater. It's what we're missing
yeah,
so much, is that
yeah.
visceral feeling.
And that wasn't your with the songwriters. That wasn't your only collaboration with them, as I understand. And I didn't know about the other ones until I started researching a person that I thought I knew very well.
My collaborations with
With the Green Day. Didn't you write? Yeah.
yes. So
Hmm.
lucky for me, we hit it off, and they really really loved my work on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy Joe then asked me one day in rehearsal, just would I be interested in talking with him about arranging, and I said, yeah, absolutely. And then that
Yeah.
became a phone call of, would you like to work on 21st Century Breakdown, do some string arrangements, which I love doing. And then I did a song on Uno Dos Tre, and to my surprise and my thrilling surprise, the demo that I had made to show my work, which included some background vocals, those vocals made it onto the album.
Oh,
So you listen to the song "Brutal Love," which I believe is on Trey. You will hear me harmonizing with Billy Joe, and then you hear all my oohs, and so I'm on a rock album.
see?
On
I gotta research you some more to find out more secrets. And here's the show, art from Freaky Friday, which you and I
Oh
worked
yeah,
on the beginnings of, and I just loved working on this show with you and Brian.
it was
Uh,
so special to work on it with you, Jerry. That
yeah,
was special.
it's such a fun show, and I finally got to see it, and I think I'm sure I texted you and Brian of how thrilling it was to see the youth education version of it at Village Theater, and it was so. First of all, I got to witness the new material that you all were saying you were going to write, and it's like, wow, it's great,
We
and
did
just
it.
to see, yeah, and just to know that it was already just crackling anyway, and that it just needed the maceration time that musicals need, and it was just really thrilling to see that work.
Thanks,
Really, really
Jerry.
great,
Very
and
special.
so it's so funny, and
It's
so
really funny, yeah, and
yeah.
it gives actors great juicy roles to really stretch and have fun with, and
Hmm.
it's got, as you say, heart. That story from Mary Rogers' original. It's
Hmm.
something we all can relate to, about the empathy.
And Bridget was your third
Richard Carpenter,
collaborator. Yeah,
yeah,
really
adore.
smart,
Yeah,
really fun, really really fun. Okay,
yeah,
here's my last set of playbills.
yeah,
13,
yeah,
SpongeBob SquarePants and Jagged Little Pill. Again, a set of shows that are very very different.
yes.
Saw all of them. Um, uh, I'm gonna zoom in on SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I went with Mario during like a day much like today. It was like a winter storm day, and you didn't know that people were even going to show up for it. It was that bad outside. I it's one of those things where you go, "What's happening to me? My body's vibrating." I am so delighted at what I am seeing and what I'm witnessing. I love that show so much, and was so thrilled to see it also make it onto the screen, because I was just thrilled, like when you can be that elated and walk out of the theater just like feeling like you're floating on a cloud. It was just magnificent.
Thanks,
Really.
Jerry. It was
Yeah.
such a loving and beautiful experience, and it was my chance to be introduced to not her work, but just the collaboration with Tina Landau, who's just such an
Hmm.
extraordinary artist, and um, you just learn so much in every way from being in her world. And I love working with Kyle Jarrow and Chris Catelli and all the brilliant designers. But it like all art, it speaks to the time it's in. You have an idea of something, and then suddenly the world around you starts to influence it more. And I mean, one of my favorite moments that Tina put in towards the end was during Best Day Ever, when, if you know the story, it becomes sort of this apocalyptic version of Bikini Bottom, because they all fear they're going to be decimated by a volcano, and they all turn
Hmm.
on one another, and they have to come back from that. And there's the zap gun that someone was threatening the town with, and someone puts a flower in it, and they all just sort of shake their heads when they first see it, and then the flower comes, and it's just, that's Tina. She just
Hmm.
brings that kind of beauty and clarity. It's and to say something about the world we want to live in, and that's why I loved working on that piece.
I felt like the everyone was so united on the tone of that show,
Yeah.
because that show could go, it could really stick just to what we saw as the animated series, become something completely different, or some sweet spot in between. I really felt like it achieved that, and like everybody was on that page. Nobody was winking.
It
It
really felt
was
that way, and it was going to have great production value, and it was going to be beautiful. And David Zinn, the world that he created with the costuming and the set. But as we've been talking about, it has heart. It has a
mhm.
important message, and the story really resonates. And I found myself getting choked up at the end, even though I knew what was going to happen. I was so grateful that
Yeah.
they did get to save the day.
And I'm so glad you brought up David Sin, because one of the just the facets of the show that I really, truly, really appreciate about his work is that the human beings, the actors, did not get lost in the
Yeah,
costume design. They
yeah,
were always front of the
yeah.
costume design, and costume design was very supportive of what they were doing. You could always feel that collaboration, which is amazing.
Yeah, he
Um,
really did a beautiful job of
yeah.
evoking the animated series, but finding a way to let these actors show their human faces and movements so that you really could connect with them.
Hmm. Here's a piece of show art from Superhero.
Huh.
And you wrote lyrics and music for Superhero, another beautiful show. You tend to go for the heart, don't you? You want every show that you work on to have this great big heart to it, even no matter if it's sad or giddy. And this certainly has that. Can you talk to how you came about the idea, how you started to work with John Logan on it? Like, how did that happen?
Well, this was something that I had been ruminating on, and it really speaks to me in terms of what I feel in this world, my fears, my hopes, my belief in wonder and imagination and the fantastical as a means to help us combat the daily fears and horrors that we see. And what better than to create a story about the possibility of a superhero existing in the world, especially in this young boy's life who has been met with such tragedy.
Hmm.
And it was meant as a love letter to my kids to say, as your father, I know that I'm not going to be able to protect you from everything in this world, but I want you to believe that there are forces out there that are looking out for you. And I also want you to understand that you have power. You can control a lot in your life, and that you should always be looking at how you make the world a better place. And
Mm.
John Logan had reached out to me for a general meeting back in 2010. He was a big Next to Normal fan. And in his office, when we met, I just pitched him the idea and he loved it. And we just started rolling with it. And I felt like, because I had written lyrics for the Tomcat Band and for other songs, and I felt like the story was really inside of me and I wanted to explore writing lyrics.
Hmm.
I was ready for my collaborators to say, um, we really should work with someone. But the lyrics felt like they were getting to the heart of the matter, and I was being surprised in the best way of what was coming out, and wanted to see it through. And it's interesting now in living through this pandemic. I went back to Superhero and did a synopsis song by song of the cast album for Playbill, and it even has more meaning
Mm.
with what we're living through, and this belief that in superheroes. And there's also a climate change element to the story. If I only had one day, which is the name of our show tonight,
Hmm.
came out just came into my head when I was driving up to the O'Neill one day. And I think that's something we unfortunately are contemplating more and more as we see the destruction and just the unexplainable events in the world that are coming with more rapidity, and more force. And at a certain point, we have to ask, how are we going to change that behavior? And we have a responsibility to our children, and you feel powerless because there's so many forces that are shouting at one another, and the inaction is terrifying. So the only way that I know how to deal with that is to create art, and that was at the center
Mm.
of why I wanted to create Superhero.
It occurs to me that that we are complex human beings, and it's a comfort to me to know that the idea of nothing's going to harm you not while I'm around can exist in the same body as a person who says that something that you're saying is that I'm not going to be around to protect you all the time.
Yeah,
That both those things are true.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we negotiate those on a daily basis. And I'm sure I'm not a parent, but I can imagine just the trying to live within that paradox of like, I want to be here to help you all the time, and that is impossible.
And we need those stories. Well, my son, when he saw it for the first time up at the O'Neill, came and found me after the show, and he was crying. I don't think he had seen a story that had really sort of rocked him in that way. The contemplation of a parent being lost, and the fears of the world and the eventual hope that it brings. But I grew up with we talked about Disney. I mean, at the center of Disney is always this kind of,
Yeah.
at the beginning, this horrific loss,
Mm-hmm.
often of a parent, that culminates in this beautiful, heartfelt story, and important realizations, and so that was something that I think has always touched me growing up, and feeling those kinds of stories. And superhero was certainly my attempt to create one of those for myself.
Mm. Uh, yeah, Disney's got that formula. Just, I mean, that formula is just down pat. Like they know that we can take the loss and the joy together. One of the things that, Tom, I have to admit, it's a guilty pleasure of mine, and I had forgotten that you'd done it, but I'm going to bring it up now. There's this television show called The Royal Pains,
Yes.
and I devoured. It
Great
was so
stuff.
fun, and I want to. Our producer Kevin. Kevin, do you in the back? He's running in the background. Do you have that clip of the Royal Pains?
Wednesday. The Hamptons dunes are filled with tunes today. Don't miss this chance to see them sing and dance away. They're singing and dancing, and it's no illusion. And there's only one show before the series conclusion. The good news is we're all gonna be okay. Cloris Leachman guest stars. Royal Pains, the musical episode. Wednesday at 10 on USA. I will get some.
What?
I never saw that. I never saw the promo. Oh, that was
I
so
was
much fun.
delighted
So much fun.
when that happened. I liked the musical episode, and there was a rapping episode in one of the seasons. It was crazy.
And
I love when those shows
they went all in. They were
all
committed.
in.
We really rehearsed it and choreographed
Yeah.
it, and
That Buzzy
I
Berkeley
wanted to
shot,
share.
that crane shot, amazing.
Yeah, no. And then you see me. I'm conducting. I'm
I
in
know.
the shot, the TK bandstand. It
In
was
black and white.
yeah.
I love it.
Fantastic.
That was really really fun. So I thank you for that.
Thank you for that. I thank you.
And I got to say, folks, this is just a sample. It really truly is a sample of getting you started on Tom's career. And before I say this next title, Tom, I have to throw you another quote. This quote is by Cole Porter. It says, "All the inspiration I ever needed was a phone call from a producer." Now, I know he was being cheeky about this, but I offered that quote knowing that you think very differently about this. And I remember being very interested in hearing Brian and Yorkie and you all talk about how If Then, a show that I worked on with you too, how that
Yes.
came about. And can you tell us about how that came about? Because I believe, as if my memory serves and my notes serve me, because I keep everything, I keep all my notes from different things, that this was commissioned by producer David Stone, correct?
Well, after Next to Normal, we already had been talking about that our next show is going to reunite. We were going to do Brian and I were going to do our next show with David, and we were going to work with Michael. So on opening night of the arena stage revamped version of Next to Normal, which would thankfully lead us back to New York, to the Booth Theater, we presented David with a treatment of If Then. And it was an idea that I pitched Brian. I've just always been really interested and fascinated with this idea of what is fated in your life, how little choices lead to these huge discoveries in your life that you kind of look back on and connect the dots and think, well, what if one of those things hadn't happened? There's a O. Henry short story, The Roads of Destiny, in which a character goes down 3 different paths and is killed by the same gun. And it's that sort of idea.
Mm.
Are we fated to is what is meant to be always meant to be? And I look at my life, that took me to Columbia by the skin of my teeth, by the way, got into Columbia, which is where I met my wife, which is where my wife, Rita Pietropinto, my girlfriend at the time, introduced me to Brian Yorkie to write musicals together. If I didn't go to Columbia, maybe I would have found my way to musical theater, but it wasn't really. Meeting Brian, working with him was what sort of got me bitten by the bug and made me want to do this as a career. So I don't know where I would be if I hadn't gone to Columbia and all of that had happened. So those kinds of things were really in my mind, and I thought it would be really theatrical and exciting to watch a character's life play out in two different realities and watch how the different characters in her life change with decisions that she makes, relationships that she has. Deciding to do a job in this life, not in this life. So I just thought it was going to be a really theatrical, magical evening. And also a love letter to New York, which had been instrumental in both mine and Brian's life. And we wanted to really celebrate on stage.
Mm. Tom, would you would you call yourself an obsessive person? Like when you get an idea, does it not go until you really scratch it deep?
I think so. I can leave something for a bit. I can certainly take a break from it, but I think definitely I have an obsessive nature. And if there's something I'm really excited about, it's hard for me to turn it off.
Mm. Mm. Hmm. Uh, Here's a show that I did not get to see. I did not get to see Flying Over Sunset. I know a little bit about what it is, but why don't you tell our audience a little bit about this show and how it came to be and then not to be?
Well, it's a fascinating show, and sadly, there's a very small group of people that have gotten to see the show because the night of our first preview was the night that Broadway shut down back in March. The good news is that the show is still, the set is in the theater. So Lincoln Center has announced different pushback dates, but we are currently slated for fall of 21. So hopefully that will happen. Mm-hmm. And you'll get to come see it.
Yes.
And it's a story, it's a history that I did not know. James Lapine called me. Actually, I think we went out for breakfast, and he just told me this. He's always been fascinated with LSD and the history of the drug, and especially in the 1950s when it was being used in the medical setting to probe the mind and to unearth in the human condition certain demons and really just sort of probe someone's mental health through their use of the drug. It brings a clarity and allows you to really, as we know, have quite an experience. I think one of the things the doctor says in the show is that we have the ability as human beings to remember everything that's ever happened to us, and being on this drug allows that process to take place. So Cary Grant, Aldous Huxley, Claire Booth Luce, and another writer named Gerald Hurd are the main characters in this story, and all experimented with the drug. It's been documented, and so it's a mixture of certainly the fact of what was going on at that time and their experimental use of LSD, and also brings them together to try the drug in the same afternoon. It's for me. There are certain times where I feel like it's the LSD meets the Breakfast Club in that moment, which I love. But it's a challenging story to tell in musical theater, which is what I love about it. It has this potential for great design and artistry and theatrical ingenuity. And I also I'm always trying to challenge myself in terms of the music I compose, and it gave me an opportunity to certainly hear my voice in it. But I said at the outset, there's not going to be a rock pop bone in the show's body, which is really satisfying and wonderful to just write an orchestral musical theater score. And it's a show that really, from the moment we started through up to Lincoln Center, we keep learning about. I was really desperate to get that audience in there and see what their experience was going to be. But it's a fascinating story, a fascinating history, and there are many things again that we are always finding in art that are written in James's wonderful book that were expressed then and feel very much like they're on topic for the landscape in 2020.
Are there uh, common is there common ground between the complexity of that musical and the musical The Visitor that you're
It was
working on?
interesting to be working on both shows simultaneously,
Hmm.
going from Lincoln Center down to the Public Theater, because they were slated to open a day apart, April 15th and April 16th. And when we get up and going, I mean, it seems like these shows are just fated to be because there's a possibility that they'll both be in the fall of 21 if we're able to open up. But they're very different. The Visitor is an adaptation of Tom McCarthy's beautiful film from 2007. And at that point, the story, which deals with immigration here in the United States, it was certainly seen as sort of a post 9/11 film. And now, as again the years go by, the story becomes more resonant, and it's firmly in the present.
Mm.
And I think that what I'm always trying to do as an artist is tell human stories, is to illuminate, is to create discussion, and also to show empathy, and to just hold a mirror to our to our world and say, how can we be better? How can we learn more about one another? How do these stories illuminate the human experience, and what we can take from that? And I think that's for me is what art has always been. It's the greatest gift to be able to immerse yourself in a story and learn about a situation, about characters, about themes that enlighten you and just make you more aware and just a better person. So those are always the stories that I want to try to create and to collaborate on. And at the heart of The Visitor and at the heart of Flying Over Sunset are real stories of the human condition. And for me, the desire to probe that, to bring about understanding, and to illuminate myself and an audience.
Mm. You know, Tom, you have access to collaboration and self-expression and success and accolades. But I know that during this health crisis, during this economic crisis, the social unrest, you found yourself really having to figure out how to cope, even with all the riches you have as a human being. A pandemic will knock us all on our asses, won't it?
Yes. And I found myself in the spring really struggling. I was certainly in a state of paralysis. I didn't want to create. I was fearful to leave my apartment for the health scare, and very protective of my children, worried for them, watching them come to terms with all that was going away. My son was supposed to graduate his 8th grade year and also go to Italy as a big sort of rite of passage, and that was canceled. My wife runs a drama camp with Marymount in the summer that they just live for, and that was canceled. I mentioned the shows that I was working on that were supposed to open were postponed, and Jagged Little Pill, of course, was halted, along with all the shows that were running and were slated to open. It was devastating, and also to just look outside and see a New York City that just seemed unfamiliar.
Mm.
So I think I was in mourning, and I was in shell shock, and was grieving. I just was sort of burst into tears. So the first thing that I did was I was asked to write a new school song for Columbia for their virtual commencement. And I asked my friend Ben Platt if he would sing a new song that I wrote. And Columbia sent me words that were really identified with the college experience, many of which I had, of course, known from attending. And I the first lyrics are, I'd do anything to be by your side. I'd travel the world both far and wide, through gathering storms and the rising tide. Columbia, oh Columbia. There's so much in that. When I say I would do anything to be by your side, it's just to walk with my fellow classmates. And I was speaking for myself, to be with my fellow artists, to be with my family, to, I remember Zooming with you and Mario early on, and you're just down in Chelsea and I'm on the Upper West Side, and we can't, it feels like a universe away. But that Columbia song was a breakthrough for me, to be able to reach out to an audience and grieve with them, and also say, but we're going to get through this, to prop each other up and say, we have to believe that there's still human connection. And that led to more work. And then also wanting to play an important role in all of the important social issues that are coming to the forefront. Many discussions that have been a long time coming, too long. And thinking, what can I do in my world of theater? What can I do as an artist? If there are people who look to me in terms of what I'm writing and what I'm putting into the world, what can I say? What can I do? And so one of those things that I was very grateful to become a part of is an organization called Muse, which is Musicians United for Social Equity, looking at creating pipelines and opportunities for BIPOC musicians in the world of arranging, musical directing, orchestration, all of the important jobs that we do on Broadway. How can we open up the world and create opportunities? And it's a wonderful group of founding members that I am grateful to be collaborating with. And then the other thing that I got involved with is NYC Next, which for me came out of just this frustration of reading article after article calling or predicting New York City's demise, and saying, well, that's not going to happen. And we artists are going to be at the forefront of that. But also in terms of bringing back the city, how do we do it? How do we come back better? How do we not just say it, but really mean it and find ways to do it and make the city a more equitable place for all? And I think artists have always been at the forefront of those discussions and that kind of action. And I work with Michael McElroy and a number of other wonderful artists to bring about an event on the TKTS steps.
Can you just a slight explanation of the wonderful Michael McElroy and what he created for the Broadway community?
Michael is one of my favorite people in the world. He's a brilliant actor, a brilliant teacher, and he also has a beautiful, beautiful Broadway ensemble called the Broadway Inspirational Voices, which I've had the privilege of just being an accompanist for and getting to. I remember the Shikaboom concerts, and I remember at the it was actually called the Village Theater, I think, down on Bleecker. I don't know what it's called now. It might sadly be at Duane Reade. But I remember BIV coming on stage and literally surrounding me. So I was listening to all this glorious singing. I could barely play the piano because I just wanted to sit back and listen.
Their arrangement of Sunday in the Park Sunday is just glorious.
Yeah, and that was the perfect song for that event. So Michael heads BIV, and another thing that I've been involved with BIV is something called Songs in the Key of Me, which partners with the Ronald McDonald House to write songs for these extraordinary young children. I've written 2 songs, gotten to meet them over Zoom. Actually, this year was Zoom because of the pandemic. The first time I did it, I got to meet the family in person and just take this child's thoughts and dreams and hopes and feelings and turn it into a song about them. So that just speaks to some of the beautiful things that Broadway Inspirational Voices do in the world. But partnering with them on this event, where for the first time we came together, socially distanced, of course, following safety protocols, but we were on the TKTS steps singing Michael and Billy Porter and James Sampliner's beautiful arrangement of Sunday. It was a very meaningful moment, and it was a way to just say, we artists are here. And we are essential in the world, and we need to be part of this movement to bring everything back. And that's truly, I think, when things will start to feel like they're coming back, when arts and culture and people really can start to congregate in that way, and feel the power of storytelling, which we need so badly right now in the world. So that was an opportunity for me to, because I've always been someone who just lets what I create and the art speak for what I'm doing, but to actually put myself out and get on a microphone and talk about the significance of that moment, and to be doing the same as Muse is starting to roll out and create events. I feel really proud, and also really excited for when we can actually be together in a room, creating all of this exciting new energy.
Yeah, and I suppose, Tom, in a way, it must be sometimes it's like, oh my God, we're getting old. But the beautiful gift about that is what we can do for generations coming up behind us.
That's
And
the most important thing. Yes, yes, absolutely. And I'm always thinking about that, especially as a father.
mhm.
I'm so grateful that my children are growing up in an artist community, because they learn to me so many important things. But
There
we
they
also
are.
dive better. Oh,
Rita,
there.
Julia,
Yep.
Michael, and Charlie. Now, I have to say, I have to give a little shout out to Rita, because she's my heart. I remember seeing Rita do something that again speaks to the power of theater, where she played an Italian dictator, a male Italian dictator,
He
and
played
wow.
Mussolini's mistress.
And then the mistresses morph
Yes. So it's a
without
play called,
costume, without makeup,
it's called
and it
Summit
was
Conference, is the play, and it's Eva Braun and Clara Petacci, I think, is the name of Mussolini's mistress. And so they have lunch while Hitler and Mussolini are off talking, and then they embody
it's
those two
just
people. And Rita, I
unbelievable.
remember all these Mussolini videotapes back in the world of VHS,
Hmm.
um, showed up, and I was like, what are all these? And it was research, and
What's
watching
going on?
her physical transformation.
Yes.
It's like, what you mentioning it, it's on my brain. I can see it. It was
Right? You could see the
thrilling.
body
Yeah.
transform again with no makeup, no. It's just it was that's again one of those indelible things. I remember that. I remember where I sat, the perspective of like watching her on stage, right, transform into this person. It was miraculous.
I'm going to tell you,
So
said that.
talented.
She's going to be very happy to hear that.
Oh, good, good. Tom, I want to first of all, I want to thank you so much for sharing what you've been doing, and especially how one comes out of anything difficult. Um, uh, and I keep expressing to people that what we do is not magic. It is we think it is integral. We think it is essential, but it is not magic. So I want to sort of cycle us into a thing called busting the myths. This is where I'm gonna tell you some things. But before I do that, here's my last quote for you. My songs are like my children. I expect them to support me when I'm old.
That's
Dolly Parton. And I love her because she's one of my favorite songwriters,
yeah.
and I know she knows that it's not magic. It's work. So here are my myths, and you can speak to whether they're true or false.
Okay.
You can't learn songwriting. You either got it or you don't.
I think that that's true, but I think that you can always learn to be better.
Okay. You must know how to read and notate music in order to write a song.
I don't think that's true, but for me, it's been helpful
Hmm.
in my process. But I think we've seen there are so many different processes, and especially now with the technology, I think you can do extraordinary things without ever having to put a note on a page.
Yeah, I use that app Hum On. Have you used that? You can
No.
hum a tune. You can hum a tune into your phone, and then it translates it into MIDI notes, which Just
I think going back to what your initial myth,
mhm.
as a songwriter, if you have that natural ability to write songs, you can do it whatever your process is. So if it means that you don't write it down, that's not your tool, that won't change the fact that you are a brilliant songwriter and have songs coming out of you.
Uh, you can't work at songwriting. It makes it feel like a job if you work at it.
I don't think that's true. I think songwriting, you can work at anything, and I know that a lot of it is based on what we are introduced to and influenced by, but suddenly we shift into this kind of music or this tonality, and it changes who we are and the kind of songs we want to write. So I think to assume that you just sort of come in and you have your sensibility and that's it, and you don't learn anymore, I don't think that's true.
The best music is written in one sitting with genius inspiration. Too much editing kills it all.
I have found that it's a really true moment when it pours out of you, and sometimes the songs that take a while are ones that end up not making the cut. But there are times where you leave something, come back to, work an idea. I've had ideas that sort of sat dormant and then became something else, like All Was Starting Over was a different song that Brian and I had written, and I heard it on my iTunes one
From
day,
it then.
and I sent it to him. I said, "Could this be something?" And he said, "Oh yeah." And then that became All Was Starting Over. So, but I do think that there's nothing like that burst of creation, and usually that's a true realization.
Mm. Songwriting is magic, and songwriters are born magicians.
I think songwriting is magic. I think the power of writing a song is something that is magical. And yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing to look at as a songwriter, as a magician, someone who just sort of poof and brings something into the world that wasn't there before.
Mm. Good music needs to be complicated and have hidden meanings.
I think that all depends on what you think is complicated. I think it is complicated and complex to write something that feels easy and not complicated. So I think there's beautiful simplicity that is extremely complicated. And if you study classical music, there's always a form to things, but that form does not mean that it's predictable or not challenging. So no, I think that I don't think something has to be complicated to be worthy.
Mm. You know, it takes me back to thanks for indulging me with my Mythbusters. I
I
love
love
those.
that.
Uh, because I think sometimes the myth is black and white, and you can go, no, that's not true. And then sometimes it's like they can be sort of true and sometimes true, which is great.
Yeah.
But you know what it took me back to, Tom? It took me back to the rehearsal hall for If Then, and the three very different versions of a song that I wound up singing in the show, Map of New York. And what's interesting about the final version is it has the most incessant engine, which you would think would be the least moving, but the intervals are so sympathetic. That ba da 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 dee da.
Mm.
It's so interesting that's my hook. And when I got that song, I learned it in about a half an hour.
Oh.
Something that says, and I remember Michael Greif was directing. It says, Jerry, go get your pages. I go, I got it, because it just leapt off the page and into my head. And the other ones were great, but I think there was a combination of the engine of Map of New York, and also the beautiful intervals
Thank
that that hit right at the right word with Brian's lyrics, and it was one of those things where, like, man, am I really the luckiest guy or what?
you.
Because they
Oh,
didn't that because you all did not stop until you had a song that's the one. Because sometimes
great moment.
I gotta tell you, I've been in musicals where they go, yeah, it's good enough. I won't
No,
name them.
songs. We wrote 6 songs for that moment. And I remember the day that we unveiled that to the cast, and that was a beautiful moment. There's nothing like that when you bring in a new song and you have all this excitement for them to hear it, and then you hope they like it. And that was a very special day, and special to have you sing it. And I think it was Michael's favorite song. When we first got the If Then cast recording in the car, Michael would always request Map of New York.
Mm. It's such a like you said, that love letter to the New York City. It just charms the hell out of you, and it makes all the suckers want to come to New York and seek their fortune. You two did that, and you're going to ruin a lot of people. But no, it's just a beautiful, and yeah, it's interesting because it is a charm song, isn't it? It lures you to New York like it's the greatest place in the universe, because so many dreams are laid here. Tom, you've talked about so much of sort of what brought you out of pain and sort of paralysis, but I also know that you've been working with other people and collaborating. So in this last thing, I call this banging the drum. It's just to have a simple time for you to say. You've already mentioned the orgs that you're involved with. What about things that you just like think? This is a great organization. Doesn't even have to do anything with theater. It can just, or a book, or something, or a museum that you want somebody to go to. It's just like a lagniappe, which is like in New Orleans, like something for nothing. Just give the people something like, oh, this is a great book, or this is a great song, or this is a great piece of art to look at.
Wow, that's a really good question.
What are you listening to now?
I've been listening to Appalachian Spring quite a bit.
By Aaron Copland?
Yeah, I've been, it's been something that just watching the sort of uncertainty in the world, and it's just very hopeful, beautiful music where you feel like you're with nature. And it just feels like it celebrates what life can be. And the first minute and a half, I would say, is one of the most beautiful, breathtaking pieces of music. The way it just sort of starts slowly in this interplay between the instruments and the suspended writing, sweeping strings, just breaks your heart. So
I was to say it sounds like America.
Yeah. I mean, certainly to me, it speaks to what I feel it can be, the kind of connection and beauty and understanding, protection of this land and of each other, which is just very important in the world right now. So yeah, it gives me hope. I've been sort of turning that on a lot.
Do you have a piece of art that turns your head?
I have to give a shout out to, there's an artist, her name is Jane Hare. She's done a lot of art here in New York, and she's a very good friend of Rita's, and has created art for us. And there is a photo of our Sunday event that was online, captured, and it's Michael McElroy conducting these singers who are on the TKTS steps, socially distant, and they're kind of standing, and his arm is in the frame, so you see his oh my God, that's a figure, but his conducting arm is sort of stretched out. And Jane, I sent it to her, and I said, "This is just one of the most beautiful images." A number of
how do you spell her last name?
Haher. And a number of the artists who performed that day had posted this picture. I can't find the photographer who took this beautiful picture. And I just sent it to Jane, and she gave me this great gift of sending it back as fully realized as a painting. And so that to me is one of the most special things to capture that day, that moment, seeing those singers on the steps, joining in voice, singing that beautiful, beautiful song, one of my favorite songs in a glorious arrangement. It's a moment I'll remember, and to capture it in that way, I feel very privileged to for that Jane shared that with me.
Thank you, Tom. Tom, I want to thank you so much for spending time with me tonight. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm sure our audiences do too. Um, have a super, super, super great holiday. I will see you soon, my friend. I know we're just we're
We'll
one
get
block
there.
from each other. We'll get there soon enough. But I just really want to thank you again for sharing not only your work but what you're going through and what you're pulling through and what you're aiming at as well. So we appreciate it. Say hi to the kids and Rita for me. Kiss and hug them. Happy holidays, my friend.
You too, Jerry. I would do anything for you. I would do anything
Oh,
for Village Theater.
thank
So
you, Tom.
I'm so happy to be asked, and hope to be back, and just send everybody out there, and especially to you and Mario and families, a safe, festive holiday season, and hoping we can all be together very soon in 2021.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Good night. So I have to thank Tom for sharing and I hope connecting. I also always want to thank Kevin Vortman, our spotlight producer, and everyone at Village Theater, especially my incredible artistic team, casting director Jessica Spencer, resident musical director Tim Simons, and associate artistic director Brandon Ivy. So here we are. Next year, I can't believe I'm saying that, we will return with more guests and more themes, more sharing, more connecting, and more of, nope, that's it. See you next year.